Hey everyone, welcome once again to Fitz in Law School. Today we're going to talk about something kind of interesting. We're going to talk about sports for lawyers. And by sports for lawyers, I essentially mean the extracurricular activities that you can do within law school. So, the first thing I want to do is talk about the good things and bad things about sports for lawyers. And the second thing I want to talk about is my experience when it comes to, I just tried out for moot court. Hooray, I made it. And so I'll keep you guys updated because that's just a very specific competition. And so that's actually going to start paying off for me in December. So that's kind of when the problem goes and gets issued, but more on that a little bit later. So sports for lawyers. Sports for lawyers are essentially a whole bunch of kind of extracurricular activities within law school. And that means that they're things that are outside of class. I mean, we all know what extracurricular activities are, but law school is a little bit different because law school doesn't really have anything outside of the area of that's not dedicated to the area of law, which of course makes sense. You know, you're in grad school; it's a very specific grad school, and so because of that, you go and you definitely work on those things. And you know, UC Hastings is a little bit different than a lot of places because UC Hastings is a dedicated law school, and so that means that places like essentially any other school in the UC system has larger activities that you can do simply because it's associated with a bigger school that's not focused on law. And so that means that you have a lot of different options in order to explore and all those kinds of things. So specifically in law school, though, there are lots and lots of things that you can do that are really, really focused on law school. So a couple of things are the moot court team is definitely one of them. It's usually the most popular. The trial team is also very, very interesting. Journals are something usually not really associated with this sports for lawyers kind of a thing, but it is it is just kind of one of these extracurricular activities that you can do. So let's see. So let's get into the good stuff. The good stuff about these activities. One thing that's obviously really, really valuable is that it looks really, really good on your resume. That is something that unfortunately you cannot ignore. That happens to be true, and that's something that's a good thing. Another good thing, you get to make a lot of friends. I mean, again, all the kind of the classic things about an extracurricular activity is the exact same thing within law school. So just think about, making new friends and getting to, do things that you wouldn't normally do, new experiences. All that stuff is really fun. You also have the ability to sharpen your skills in certain things that you might not work towards in the first place. So for example, there's lots of things that are considered sports for lawyers, which are essentially the trial team and the moot court team are the big ones. And what they allow you to do is they allow you to go and do oral arguments. A lot of people, when they enter law school, they don't want to do litigation at all. I was kind of the same way. I don't particularly have any interest in city life, in litigation that much. Litigation just doesn't really seem that interesting to me. However, I do really, really like oral argument. And so does this mean that if you go and you do moot court or trial team, therefore you have to go into oral argument, even if you love it? No, not at all. Because these kinds of activities also build a bunch of skills. They build your presentation skills. They allow you to synthesize information really, really well. They allow you to think on your feet. You go and you prepare for tons and tons of things for trial team and for moot court, and then you're asked by a panel of judges. At least I think in trial team you're asked by a panel of judges. I believe trial team, if I'm not mistaken, trial team is essentially the entire process. So it's from filing a initial complaint all the way to winning or losing the final thing. Moot court is essentially the oral argument part and the brief part. That's it. Just those two parts. So I know that the trial court team, their tryout was you went and you were questioning a witness. For moot court team, our tryout was essentially you got to pick one of the briefs, and then you had about 4 or 5 days, depending on when you signed up to go and try out. You would appear before a trial of judges or a panel of judges. In my case, it was 9, and that was kind of a lot. And they would just ask you questions. So it would just be exactly like an oral argument. And so, yeah, so however much you can go and read all the information and really, really get to know the whole procedure, not only the procedure, but also the set of facts that you're working with, then the court can then ask you these really weird, crazy questions that you maybe had never thought of. Or they're going off something that you said and just taking hypothetical in a really crazy direction. I know that my oral argument a month and a half ago was kind of the same thing. The second one was just about a hypo that I raised the entire time, and that definitely can happen. But that teaches you to kind of think on your feet and really understand the fact. Because again, anyone can recite facts. It's not a skill to recite. Well, yes, it is. To recite facts and to kind of like know the facts, but to understand the facts is entirely different. That means that you need to explore different avenues and explore different ways that you can go and apply those certain facts. And so because of that really doing these kinds of activities really, really allows you to do that really well. And that's something that all lawyers are going to have to do no matter what. Even if you're not in litigation, you still want to give your clients the best advice that you possibly can. And that means that you have to understand and synthesize the facts. So that's also really fun. You get to travel certain places. I'm going to be able to travel to Madison, Wisconsin. I've never been to Madison, Wisconsin, so that should be fun. Yeah, just lots of good stuff. Bad stuff. I mean, I think really I guess there are only two really perceived bad things. One real and one not really that real. The first one is the possibility that it could take away from your studies. Now, I'm the kind of person, I've been this way my entire life, that the more I do, the more I can do. And so the more that's on my plate, the more that I don't have the ability to procrastinate, the less that I procrastinate. And I'm bad at procrastination. I know that. And so like right now, I'm studying for finals, and it's driving me insane that I have nothing to do other than study for finals. Just like nothing scheduled, nothing that's really written in stone. And so that's why I don't really like the big long period of finals, like I mentioned last time during finals. But yeah, so it might interfere with your studies if you let it interfere with your studies. And then the second thing, which is not really real, is you might lose. You might lose your competition and you might feel super sad. But again, that's something that's not really real. That's something that is a good, important exercise in not only understanding what it is to be a lawyer, where you might lose, but then also, learning from your mistakes and all that, classic stuff. So that is the good and bad about extracurricular activities. And so now let's just go through a couple of them and let's talk about my experience. So, let's see. So there's trial team, which I kind of mentioned a little bit before. There's moot court. There is journals. And again, this is each one of these activities really allows you to practice different things when you're in law school. There are clubs in law school. There are pro bono opportunities. There are volunteer opportunities. There are groups that particularly deal with a very, very certain sect of what people want to do within law school. Different subjects. There are clinics. There are externships. And all these things, every single thing that I just said is basically not required of you when you're in law school. I guess you could say it depends on the law school, but I find that very unlikely. I find it unlikely that there's any law school that requires you to be on moot court or requires you to be in a clinic. As far as I know, every single law school that I know of doesn't. That's a little bit different when it comes to like volunteer hours or pro bono hours, because actually my school does. My school requires at least 50 over those 3 years. So again, it's not that big of a commitment. And, it's a pretty loose requirement when it comes to, if you do, what is that, 15 hours or like 17 hours per year? Yeah, I think you can do that. But yeah, so I mentioned moot court and trial team. Journals are something that you've probably heard of, like the Harvard Law Review. That's a journal within Harvard Law, the UC Hastings Law Review, or the UC Hastings Law Journal. And those are usually kind of the most general kind of journals that address basically any sort of topic, but they address them rather generally. But what they are is they're 95% of the time a student-run newspaper, essentially. It's like a little book, a little pamphlet, and it gets published a few times a year, maybe once or twice a year. But essentially what it is it goes and you are writing like these big long papers that are usually like 20 or 30 or 40 pages long that are talking about various areas of law and this, kind of a current analysis of this area of law, of an interesting case, of how this area of law is developing, lots of those kinds of things. And it really, really helps you with your writing. And it also, and since obviously there's a limited number of people who can be on these journals, that means that usually they take the best and the brightest writers. And lawyers, some lawyers don't do oral advocacy. Some girls never talk to their clients. Some lawyers never really engage in any sort of oral advocacy. However, every single lawyer writes. All lawyers write. And so because of that, that's always seen as a very good thing. And it helps you practice your legal reading and legal writing. So, it's a good idea. Let's see. Externships are, like internships, but external. No. What they are is they are essentially arrangements with various, like you could take my the thing that I did for the city of San Francisco last semester, or like this past semester, that was essentially an externship. So that means that during the school year, you are not only doing your classes and stuff, but you're also working for someone else. And so that's usually what an externship is. And then you have an arrangement with the school to say this counts as something that has to do with law school. And so because of that, you get a couple credits. Now, because I was a 1L, I'm not getting credits, but I am getting, pro bono hours. So that's fine. Let's see here. And then, what was the last one I said? Clinics. Yeah. So clinics are essentially hands-on journals. Usually what they are is they are very specific clinics that are run by your school, and you get credits once again when you go through this clinic. But what you do is you go and you just focus on one area of law. And usually that means, and because, these are law students, you're not technically allowed to give legal advice or anything like that. And so you're essentially just going to be helping with paperwork, helping with prepping for trial, helping real clients and real lawyers kind of do their work. But it's really, really hands-on work. And so that means that you're just going to get a lot of great experience. And once again, it's usually during the year, during the school semester. And you usually get lots of credits. And so, like for me, I think not my 2L year, but my 3L year, just because that's how it's working out with my schedule. I really want to do something called the Startup Legal Garage. And essentially what that is it's a thing. And I think it's like a joint effort between Berkeley, Hastings, and Stanford. But what it is it's this consortium of lawyers that are working together through the schools to help startups and help them file all this paperwork and understand the regulations that they have to go through and stuff. So it's a really, really interesting kind of a thing. And it's a little bit more tech heavy and stuff. So I think I'm going to find that really, really interesting. But that is, yeah. So those are sports for lawyers. And that's kind of what they call them. They call them sports for lawyers. So yeah. So I hope you all found this interesting. I hope you all found this informative. And let's see. Right now I am studying for finals. So there might be a little bit of a gap. We might do another quick thought, maybe next week or the week after. But right now I'm just cramming and studying for finals, which is lovely. So no promises on when the next video is going to be. Perhaps the next video will be like after finals are over, because these are the finals for my first year of law school. So first year is done after this, which is just insane how fast time has gone by. So it might be just a quick video on like the reflections of the past year, on all that I've learned and all that stuff. But I might do another quick thought about a specific sort of legal action. So I think that's what we're going to do next time. All right? Okay. See you later, guys.